Lisa Gawlas, Seeds of New Light, Christ, the Antichrist, oh my. Webpage, www.mysoulcenter.com. It is amazing how unconsciously speaking directly of myself here we can humanize God, Source, Creator, or as he said to call him that. What was strange, is calling God that and referring to him as that, felt like an object and uncomfortable on my tongue. And yet, having my solo guy on the field yesterday, I truly expected God to show up as a feminine energy. My jaw dropped to the ground when that didn't happen. I think my expectation was so high, which I usually check at the door and don't bring to the field, that even the opening of my man's reading was nothing like I was anticipating, given the wild ride of the day prior. Instead, my man showed up on one of the petals, raised up about 6 feet in the air, connected at his lumbar spine to a thin silver pole. His body was parallel to the field and spinning clockwise like crazy. Fast. I had to ask for his body to stop spinning so I can see the details, which is how I realized the pole thing was part of his lumbar spine. I also noticed that from head to toe, he had these pollinator thingies in place of body hair, sticking out of his skin and clothes. Then he went back to spinning, and then I realized some more was happening. There was a double wind stream taking place through his spin. He was releasing these light seeds to the earth and at the same time, drawing in more of these light seeds from source to stay constantly replenished. It shone that he is releasing pure source light through his body, but not always in the same way. The main way, what he is doing right now, 24/7, was setting his soul and cellular bodies up all over the world at the main political offices to shed light seeds. I had to laugh when the first place they showed up was the top of the White House, and there must have been a fence set up inside to make sure that most of these light seeds are blown away. Very few were absorbed and utilized. To contrast this, I seen what I guess would be Switzerland's equivalent, and they had people set up to draw in these seeds and use them to enhance themselves as a governing body that will eventually flow out to the people. It was also explained, he is in most countries doing this. Talk about being multidimensional and multilocational. But also, talk about being exhausted day in and day out. When we got enough information about his position, and I truly feel, to completely kick my expectations to the curb, it was as if his form melted, I would say, from exhaustion, while onto the petal, feet towards the center. And then it happened, and I think I lost it more than even yesterday. This is a brand new man I never read for, and now I have got to tell him the source of all life just ejaculated all over him. And yes, the word and expression ejaculation is God's purposeful word. And even now I hear I am an equal opportunity ejaculator. However, contrasting the day before and all the women, this seed-filled ejaculate had a different reaction on his body. What we would consider the clear fluid became like a crust covering his skin. The seeds, the long stemmy seeds like I showed in yesterday's blog, was everywhere his body hair was, or should be. However that works out. His job, his homework is to start becoming consciously aware, a conscious participator with his source energy light seeds of release. The more he consciously participates, the more concentrated the energy becomes, the less exhausting all of this becomes. And this applies to everyone. Our goal over these next few years is to become conscious co-creators, much more than we are now. As we are now, we are semi-conscious, those using other people's ways and abilities. Well, change that into partially conscious. As the world stands right now, on purpose, there is not one fully conscious human on the planet. The body is still very much upgrading itself to hold that kind of light, that kind of pure energy. That said, all of Earth is a massive pivotal point as we closed out 2016. Now, everything quickens, if we allow for it in our personal bodies and spaces. There are some things we must leave at the curb ourselves, personally and collectively. Getting out of gender roles, stereotypes, and our single view of what we are capable of doing. Right now, the whole earth is being seeded in ways it never has before. We are changing as a species faster than we ever have before. Those that refuse to germinate the seeds of light coming in, will simply leave this planet for another to finish their lessons. Duality has started its death throes. There is a visual we want to share, to help with understanding and partnership. Let's use the example of a woman with a fetus in the womb at about 8 months into gestation. That is about where we are, those living within the constructs of the Emerald City. In the past, the way communication happened in this sacred place, the womb, was the baby would relay its needs through the amniotic fluid, the sound amplifier between mother and child. This was the same way we connected to God, Source. Only our amniotic fluid was with our guides, our teachers, memories through the belt line of time, integrating, growing, becoming. Now, the communication changed. Instead, the umbilical cord that has always served as a direct food source, is now equally the direct communication with the mother, with God, Creator, whatever. One can argue, but I have had my conversations with God for most of my life, and we have, through much needed filters. Through the amniotic fluids to absorb that pure energy. This is where most of humanity, over eons and eons of time, gets stuck. They do not allow the relationship to change, to become so much more. If a community does, like the Essene community, history focuses on just one, like Jesus. Then we pervert particle sentences. I of my own self, can do nothing. If they would have finished the quote in its entirety, it would be understood that to do all he was remembered for doing, he had to pull from the entire flower, from the entire community, and at the same time, be so tapped into the source of all of life to know instantaneously, what to do with all that harnessed power. Not to mention, in full relationship with the earth energy too. The father and the mother come through the sun. Each one of us, has the opportunity to be the sun on earth, as a living expression, in thought, deed and body of God and Gaia. We also caution you who run back to the history books, both within the memory of your cache as well as on the earth. There are many planes of earth experiences. What you call parallel lives. Every major choice point created a new plane of experience. So what happened in one plane, may not have happened in another, or another, or another. We have all come to this moment, with fragments. On purpose. And now, for those who allow, these other planes of what we consider history, which is truly being played out right now, is condensing, blending together to reveal a much larger whole. To allow embodiment of all the masterful choice points into what we would consider, singularity. Our Emerald City lives. We must also remain aware, that just like the baby in the womb, we will have particular attributes of the mother and the father. But the mother and father do not cease to exist because you were born, not at all. And not one person will be able to do it all, each can do a whole lot, but, we need the family to pull from and not be separated from each other. That too, is on purpose. Ha ha, that was placed on purpose too. I cannot believe we are going to go here, but here we go. Christ versus the Antichrist. Christ is simply a title of enlightenment. Full enlightenment. The community known as the Essene community was a Christed, fully Christed community. Because that which we know as Jesus was a spokesperson for this community, we think he is the only one who is enlightened, and able to perform miracles. History, both from the spiritual realm as well as the ongoing human realm, had to twist the truth, hide bits and pieces, again, spelled that way on purpose. If we can temper the phrase Antichrist as someone who lives solely from the ego, who pulled the shades down on any sort of light of the all, there are many walking around, sitting in churches and synagogues that can truly be called the Antichrist. All needed, loved and part of this amazing game. The United States has just put in power the greatest one of all. Timely and perfect He is. For those who gather in the light, use your vision, your ability to see upcoming choice points of the collectives soon to fall away. This will take you to the gathering. With all that said, I am given a view of I don't know, I guess what we call the ongoing now moment. It's framed like an elliptical shape, stretched out only to the future, the past non-existent, save yesterday. Phew baby, we are closing on that note. Big hugs, of light seeds penetrating where no light has dared to go before. Lol, Lisa Gawlas. www.mysoulcenter.com